I'm going to hand the floor over now to MEP Faria, who's very kindly co-hosting this meeting with the European Alliance for Access to Safe Medicine. So, Faria, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mike. It's always a pleasure to collaborate with the European Alliance for Access to Safe Medicines. And we have many converging interests as they are very active on patient safety issues, and that is to be applauded. We should not underestimate the complexity of these safety features enshrined in the directive because many challenges are had to be overcome, and as it was experienced by stakeholders. I will now pass the floor to Mike Isles, who will also moderate the session. Mike, the floor is yours.
You'll find a report in front of you, which I will refer to in a moment. Please take a look also at an invitation to complete a compounding survey, perhaps through your hospital, pharmacy networks or others. You might like to consider publicising that. I know that we all want this meeting to serve the best possible purpose, and the knowledge and expertise that is imparted here is shared as widely as possible. So if you like, this is just the start of something that we hope will be able to go potentially across hospital pharmacies in Europe. So now, there have been 17 breaches in the UK of the supply chain, of the legitimate supply chain, since around 2004. And we should bear that in mind, because if you think there are 27 other member states within the EU Union, you multiply that up, you get to a figure of 459 incidents. And I'm sure we don't track all of the incidents. We know of direct robberies of lorries carrying medicines and that the stock re-entered the legitimate supply chain. So undoubtedly, there will be great benefits from the implementation of the FMD. Yes, we understand that many hospitals receive direct deliveries from manufacturer, but that supply chain does not cover all. And so the extra supply protection afforded by the FMD is a very useful reinforcement. However, we must also bear in mind that many EU citizens buy medicines, often unwittingly, from the internet. A recent estimation put the figure at 130 million people potentially buying medicines, most likely without the need for a prescription. So we advocate very strongly that in addition to the common logo, that pharmacies also consider taking up the top-level domain name .pharmacy, which is governed well by the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy. Similarly, we would also encourage each and every member state and DG Santé to uphold Article 85D of the FMD, which legally obliges them to publicise the meaning of the common logo and to explain to the public the dangers of falsified medicine. This is important as those creating the demand, you and I in the room, consumers, patients, are supplying the criminals with their opportunity. So without further ado, I think there is no better place to start with the head of European Medicines Verification Organisation, the General Manager, Andreas Walter. Andreas, over to you.
The EMVS is now implemented and is mandatory. So we do not talk about, or I will not talk about safety features. I'm talking about a system which is checking the safety features all over Europe. And before I come into the details, let me say one statement. There are sometimes still discussions around why we need this system, and it is in the benefit of the patient safety. And each pack handed over to a patient, which is a falsified one, is one too much. So we should put all discussions in that frame from now onwards. And that's the baby. You should all know it. This is, I think, the slide we are showing since 2011, when a design was fixed. In the middle, you have there the European hub, and the EMVO is running the European hub. The main purpose of this is that we have created there a sort of router which is maintaining, or which is establishing already the interoperability between the national systems, because the central database was not kept as a solution in the very early discussions together with the stakeholders and the regulators. So the hub is the single point of data entry of a point of dispense verification system. So please, again, this is not a track and trace, it's a point of dispense where the hub is the central data entry point. The hub is also keeping master data for a temporary time in order to make the communication between the repositories possible, to make also possible recalls, etc. And we are also taking care that throughout the system there is a European harmonization coming up and maintained, which is important if you go into standards for serialization, etc. We did a lot of work there before the deadline, and in order to make sure that all talk with the same language. This is our current status of the onboarding partners. Onboarding partners are manufacturers, not marketing authorization holders. I have to make the distinction. We have, our first estimation was 2,500 in Europe, manufacturers. Now, the regulation and the directive made, of course, that there's a certain decrease of numbers because the serialization is related with costs, and very, very small manufacturers could not afford the serialization costs. So where we are landing now is about, in our estimations, 1,600. Out of them, we have 1,100 in our system. And if you go through, I do not give you all the details, but we have currently 335 companies uploading data in the system, which covers more or less between 90–95% of the products in the market. So we are there. However, I have to underline, we have